Welcome to the business of indie games. Renee, thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. So I'll dive straight in. How did you get started in games, and what drives you?
Right. So I actually got started in games somewhat later than a few of my peers. It wasn't until my senior year of college that I even realized that the game industry was a potential path for my career. And at that time, I had actually gotten my degree with a focus in mechanical engineering. However, after college, I really decided I wanted to go into the game industry. So I taught myself programming and I built up my network and eventually was able to break in by assisting other indie studios and then starting my own.
Well, that's fabulous. You're certainly not the first developer I've spoken to who's taught themselves programming.
Luckily, with the internet, there's so many valuable resources that self-education, particularly along the lines of technology, can be done at home.
Yeah, fantastic. Sorry, Renee, I have a small problem here. I don't know if you can hear that noise in the background.
Is that the whop whop?
He normally just sits quietly on his cushion, but today he's causing trouble. So I'll just remove him for a few minutes.
Okay.
For a few seconds. Right, I beg your pardon. Sorry about that. Usually he's as good as gold.
He has good timing.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. What is it that sort of allured you to the games business then?
I've always been a huge fan of video games. I started playing video games probably when I was 5 years old. I actually started with probably different games than most people would expect. I started off on first-person shooters. So my first 3 games in order were Doom, Duke Nukem 3D. Actually, no, it was Wolfenstein, Doom, Duke Nukem 3D, and then Pokemon Yellow. So I've always played games for as long as I can remember, and they've always been something I've been passionate about. Even before deciding to get into the game industry, I was someone who was writing guides about various video games, creating cosplay and art. And they have always been a part of passion in my life, and I just didn't realize that it was a career path I could pursue.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, I identify perfectly with that. I used to make Dungeons and Dragons, paper dungeons, for the guys before making any games. And I remember when the first games came out, my little brother and his friends, I couldn't get near the television, so I could see that this was something that was going to be incredible. So, I mean, but we both have a similar passion for video games. But you've really excelled. I mean, you've built a great reputation and you're really trusted. What's been your journey in getting established in video games?
It certainly hasn't been the easiest path. When I was switching over from biotech, which I was working in while developing my programming skills, I had a hard time breaking into studios at the time due to not being a fresh college graduate, but not having any game development experience. So I'd actually sent out a ton of applications and was not getting any responses. I still really wanted to pursue video games though. So that's when I started volunteering and working at other indie game studios and really focused on building my network and promoting myself. I used every opportunity I could to learn and to also teach. And I think that sort of cyclical taking and giving back to the community is a great way to elevate yourself and to gain that trust and prestige.
Yeah, thank you. What did you volunteer at? I'm just curious.
So I worked with, I worked on Sinister Dexter, which was a mobile game that was being created by a group of 30 part-time developers that were all individually volunteering their time for free. So I started as a producer and then ended up taking over server development and some of the engineering management as well.
Yeah, great. What a great way to get in.
Yeah.
You mentioned to Nicola about hitting the pavements and going to the openings of any video games event to get established.
Right.
What experience did that give you?
Certainly, I had a huge advantage living in Seattle as I was starting my career. Seattle just has such a vibrant, active game industry, and it's full of events for both indies and AAA developers. When I was able to go to those events and build my networks, not only was I able to build my network in a way that would give me potential career opportunities, but as well to establish a community of support. So when I was starting my own company and really going through the trenches, I had a lot of people that I could talk to for advice, both on the technical side, the design side, and even on business.
Yeah, fantastic. You built your network. Were you able to get investment through building that network?
Definitely. I believe that the only reason my Kickstarter for Potions of Curious Tale, the game that we're developing at Stumbling Cat, was successful was that network that I worked on developing. Having so many connections with other indie developers who are willing to reach out to their communities and networks and talk to people who are interested in similar games, other indie games, really gave my campaign the reach that it needed. And we sort of barely passed. We only met our goal 15 minutes before the end deadline. So literally every single person's support helped.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's an incredible story. So using that experience, how would you suggest that our audience, new independents or new indies or small studios looking for investment, how would you suggest they get better at developing their networks?
Certainly going out and making yourself known, being present at the events that you can attend, and working to give back to the community. Think about all of the resources that you were making use of as you were developing your own skills, and consider the resources that you felt were missing, and then be the person to create those. So many people, as they're learning, once they learn something, they feel like what they learn doesn't have as much value as it truly does, and it's hard for them to remember the time that they were a novice and didn't have that information. I think that going and giving talks, writing white papers, even writing blogs and doing vlogs are a great way to give back to the community and to expand your own network and be seen as an expert, whether or not you're top 1% in your field, or if you're just someone who's supporting newer developers and their education.
Great, thank you. What kind of opportunities have opened up for you through that blogging and sharing and the give and take that you've been talking about?
Certainly. Obviously, the funding of my Kickstarter was a huge one that's enabling me to follow my dream of making this game that's so important to me. Also, I mean, really, it's my entire career. Without the network that I built, I wouldn't have been elected to the board of the IGDA, and without that, I wouldn't be now here as their executive director. I also know that that network provided a lot of benefits to my own knowledge and to my growth as an entrepreneur. I've done a lot of consulting as well, and the assistance that I've received, or rather the amount of attention that I've received from the resources I've created has been significant. For example, I wrote a white paper called Social Virtual Reality Best Practices. And due to that white paper, I've been invited to speak at many conferences. I have been paid to attend workshops and to give my expert opinion on subjects around social virtual reality. And just, it seems that every resource I create causes 10 opportunities to come in. So it's really an investment that pays off. And I know that it can be intimidating for people to think about writing something that that they don't necessarily consider themselves an expert on for other people to read and critique and consume, but it's always going to be valuable to someone. And even practicing creating those resources allow you to create even better resources going forward.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I found even like writing articles, it consolidates your own learning for yourself, you know?
Exactly. I do think that there is a lot of truth in the saying that one of the best ways to learn is to teach. It really helps you cement your knowledge and to reapproach the way you think about things to ensure that everyone can understand that logic.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I can see, I love the idea that, you know, each time you create a resource, it opens up 10 opportunities. But I was thinking there, you know, while you were speaking, that you were speaking at conferences and you know, working with your industry peers, yet you have a studio, and for your game that needs to reach the consumer. How are you doing with the studio? How is the game coming along? What's the status of that at the moment?
It's coming along.
Development.
It's coming along really well. We're late alpha, I would say, getting into beta just as we're finishing up the content. It is a story-based, content-heavy game. So while we have all of our systems in place, it's really building out those countless levels and puzzles and boss fights and monster interactions that's taking up the majority of the development time now. Luckily, we approach the development in a very modular-based way, so it allows the creation of that content to be a lot easier than it would with other approaches.
Thank you. And so you're looking at a release for Thanksgiving?
I don't think that we'll be able to release that soon. All of our contributors are part-time contractors, and so they're typically only able to work a bit on weekends.
Oh, I see. So have you put is the team put together remotely?
Yes, our entire team is remote, exclusive of my partner, who of course lives in my house. But I think that remote work is becoming more and more popular these days. You know, with the power of the internet and technology, the fact that we can do this interview right here, that really enables people to connect from across the world, and it allows people to combine their resources to develop games in ways that would not be possible before.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. I mean, I'm working with a team in Romania at the moment, and I'm in London in the UK, and so the cost is half of what it would be if I were to do the development in London. Right. And their industry is at such a stage where they remind me of us when we first started out, and they're really keen, and they're really just like heavily into Unity, and you know, they overpromise, they underpromise and overdeliver. You know, it's just fantastic. It doesn't matter, you know, where people are in the world, if they've got the right attitude and they're good developers, you can make great games.
Yeah, that's great, and I'm glad that you're supporting their career development and local game industry.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, it's so exciting to do that. Keeps me young as well, you know.
Definitely. And that's one of the things that I enjoy most about working for the IGDA. It's that opportunity to give back to the industry that supported me all around the world. And when it comes to building up your local network, for example, the IGDA has local chapters of well over 100 of them around the world that support local events that are a great opportunity to go meet other people in the game development community near you.
Yes, thank you. And we'll certainly get into the IGDA stuff in a bit more detail in a minute. That's great. So is your studio, it's funded by the Kickstarter campaign. The team are working remotely. Do you have any intention to set it? I can see a cat stumbling in.
Yeah, that's actually the stumbling cat.
Fantastic. Do you have an idea to establish you know, an in-house studio where people work together, or are you going to develop this model going forward?
It's hard to say. I think that one thing that I have approached this project with is the acknowledgement that it might not be a financial success. So if it is a financial success and we can look at having a location-based studio, that is something that I would definitely like to explore. But I acknowledge that, you know, not all games are large enough financial successes to support the overhead of that. You know, having a location-based office has an extremely high overhead, and it does limit the talent that you can you have access to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've released 65 SKUs altogether, you know, across maybe 25, 30 titles, and 10 of them would have made proper money, you know, and another 10, 15 would have washed their face, you know, broken even. And whenever I've opened a studio, I've always had to make sure that we've got a couple of years worth of money to be able to sustain everybody if you're going to take it seriously.
Yeah.
So it's great that we've got these new opportunities for individuals to collaborate with other people online to make games. You can kind of test the market, and then once you've got a franchise, you can build a studio the size that you like.
Definitely. I think that is a great way to approach it, because not only does it reduce your risks as a company, but it also reduces the risk for your contributors. Because as we know, you know, moving to a new location, trying to, you know, start your life again can be very taxing, especially if you don't have multiple years of runway when it comes to funding.
Yes, absolutely. And so just before we dive into IGDA stuff, a moment on funding and the crowdfunding. Can you give some advice or tips for developers in executing their crowdfunding campaign based on your actual experience?
Yes. Research, research, research. I mean, I spent an entire year researching what Kickstarter was looking like at the time, what successful campaigns were, what their reward tiers were, what successful post-campaign games felt about the reward tiers, and then was able to craft my campaign based on that. I've seen a lot of people launch Kickstarter campaigns who are very passionate and have really good ideas, but their execution of the campaign itself makes a lot of mistakes that other people have made that they could have recognized and learned from those if they had done their research. The benefit of putting in a lot of research beforehand, it also allows you to build your network and build the hype around that game prior to launching your campaign. So as you're doing your research, you can start doing your initial marketing, testing the waters, seeing what kind of messaging is effective prior to going into your campaign, which is a much higher risk time. You don't want to be having to make edits and last minute changes during that.
Yeah, thank you. And what kind of mistakes did you see that other people have made that you're able to avoid?
Certainly when it comes to Kickstarter, having physical rewards at lower tiers can put financial pressure due to shipping costs. Mostly I saw just sort of not strong copy, you know, messaging, writing, looking at what appeals most to, when you look at what appeals most to Kickstarter backers, it is not only the concept of the game, but confidence in its execution. You know, this isn't the 2012 heyday of Kickstarter where almost any campaign gets funded. You have to prove that there's a high chance of that game eventually being made, because a lot of backers are wary. And I mean, that works for normal investors as well. That's something that the more you can demonstrate, the more successful your fundraising will be.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, that's great. You're absolutely right. And it's a very interesting universe. Did you have any stretch goals for your campaign? I've seen, good successful campaigns where they've had a goal for the game and then they've had stretch goals that have given new and exciting innovative features, and they've managed to get extra money for that.
I believe we had a few stretch goals. I actually would have to go look back at the campaign. We certainly didn't reach any of them. We asked
Okay.
for $62,000 and got 64,500. So we just barely edged over what we were aiming for. And I think that that's actually another thing that people don't research well enough. What amount you're asking for in your campaign has a huge effect on the campaign itself. Obviously, asking for a ton of money is hard to meet, but asking for too little money discourages people from backing and provides, gives them lack of confidence.
Yes, yeah, I think you hit a sweet spot there, because for a sort of small independent or a group of individuals, that is a sort of fair price, and you attained it, albeit with 15 minutes to go. Yeah, because when you look at other things like Ashes of Creation, and you can see those guys are funded to, I think it was over $3 or $4 million, when they'd asked for a couple of million. But they had the track record and they had the product and they had, an existing audience for their games already, right?
Right. At the time that I was starting my campaign, I knew that I didn't have the track record, as you said, to instill a lot of confidence. And that's definitely affected what I felt comfortable asking for. Completely truthfully, $64,000 is enough of funds for me to pay all of my contractors, but it doesn't leave any funds for myself. So all of my work on this is my own donated time or even self-funded work.
Right. Wow. Wow. So you're looking at it like a lost leader. Either you're going to get the money in royalties or you're going to get the value of the experience, right?
Yes, I definitely approached it as like college 2.0. I have invested personal money in Potions: A Curious Tale. Certainly less than college tuition, but also a non-trivial amount. But I saw it as investing in the career path I wanted and in the dreams that I have. And I am 100% behind that decision and would make it again anytime.
Well, I wish you a lot of luck with that game, and because if it isn't this one, it will be the next one or the one after. Having made so many, at least I know to keep going.
Yeah, it's definitely been a wonderful experience, and no matter what happens, I know that I will be proud of it.
Exactly, and you never know; could do really well, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. You're balancing life here between IGDA and your studio. So what made you say yes to the IGDA position?
It really was about giving back to the community. Certainly in my career, I've been elevated so much by having local industry events, by having great communities and networks to go to for advice and support. And I really wanted to provide that to all other developers, both veteran and novice. One thing that I think really pushed me towards it was the fact that I didn't know that game development was a career path for me until I was 21. I mean, I think that I would have started programming in high school if I had known, or maybe even in middle school, and that I would have been making small games for myself back then. But I just didn't know that that was an opportunity. And I want to make sure that no one else feels that they were unaware of the potential career opportunities in games.
Yeah, fantastic. What a lovely story. So it sounds like you've got some great plans for IGDA, focusing on interconnection and sharing. You touched on them briefly. What's the agenda for the coming year?
So we have a lot of really exciting new benefits coming up. The first and foremost, and I haven't actually announced this publicly yet, so this is great.
Oh, thank you.
Um,
Oh, wow.
is that we're going to be ramping up a worldwide IGDA Discord community that has individual channels and representations of all of our chapters, SIGs, and student chapters, in addition to general conversation channels. With our network reach of nearing 50,000 developers, we think that that community is going to really grow and thrive, and it's going to help enable cross-pollination between different local chapters and different special interest groups. So I think it's going to be a really wonderful, valuable resource for all game developers.
Oh, yeah, that is fabulous. That is fabulous. And so how can the different types of games industry businesses benefit from an IGDA membership?
So we offer studio affiliation. Studios of any size can become affiliate members, and indie studios actually have an advantage in pricing. I believe it's only $200 a year to be a member for smaller studios. What that membership with the International Game Developers Association provides is not only a membership for all of your studio members, but it also provides you with recognition and visibility on our website and on events, features in our IGDA Insider, which has a reach of almost 30,000 game developers. It also provides career center postings, so you can reach out to this wonderful network of game developers when you have job opportunities available. And it just provides a lot of opportunities to give back to the community as well. The IGDA does so much to support the game industry in general. We provide free resources for people to educate themselves. We speak up when significant events happen, and we really stand for what's best for game developers and the industry as a whole. So I think that giving back to that community and supporting that is just a really valuable benefit.
Yeah, thank you. And does it cover like legal advice and tools and education as well as development and
so
business?
we have our legal and business special interest group that provides wonderful resources all along those lines. You can both ask them questions, and they've published really, really wonderful documents to review if you need advice on those lines. We're also working to develop more resources all the time, from standardized HR resources to white papers on specialized subjects.
Great. And I imagine that like art and programming are covered very well.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a fabulous thing. And it must be a very exciting time for you there. And I know that one of your passions is leadership in games. Could you share a little bit more about that, please?
I can are you just asking for general leadership advice, or what leadership means to me?
Yes, yeah, what it means to you. I mean, 'cause you mentioned earlier that you have a passion in that area, and I just wondered if you might share with us what you feel.
Right. I think that there's two types of leadership that's really important. One, of course, is what you see as traditional leadership, being a servant leader, working with teams, enabling other people to be their best. And that's really how I see the role of leadership. You're not so much navigating the boat as making sure it's on track, but making sure that everything's running smoothly as well, that everyone's happy and fulfilled, etc. I think that there's another really important aspect of leadership that applies to everyone, and that's personal leadership. It's the ability to apply what are considered best business practices, best leadership practices to yourself. That includes creating measurable and actionable plans for yourself and your career and your self-development. It includes introspection and being able to recognize and offer your own strengths, and working continuously to grow and develop that skill set. It's also the recognition and seizing of opportunities to grow your skills, but also promote yourself. And finally, it's learning how to navigate and to grow from successes and failures. And I think that a lot of those skills from personal leadership can apply to typical leadership, to leadership of others, and that working on personal leadership will always make you a better leader.
Yeah, thank you. I think we could probably do a whole nother interview just on that topic, actually.
If you're actually interested in that topic, there is the IGDA Leadership Summit. The last one occurred in 2018, and I gave a talk called Personal Leadership, Leading Your Only Permanent Party Member, which is available on YouTube
I was going to ask
on the IGDA channel, so you can check that out.
I'll look that up. Thank you very much. And how can people sign up to join IGDA?
So if you're interested in becoming an IGDA member, or you want to access our valuable resource library and check out our wonderful communities, you can go to igda.org. That has all of the resources that you need.
Thank you. I've really appreciated you being here this afternoon.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. It's been wonderful to talk to you.
Can I ask one more question before you go?
Certainly.
Do you have any advice for people right now who are struggling to find their place in the games industry? What would you say to them?
I would say if you're struggling to find your place, the best thing to do is to start doing something that you care about. And it doesn't have to be your biggest passion. You don't have to invest yourself completely in it. My own career path has been quite wandering. But it's to find something small of interest and then to pursue that. And in that pursuit, and it could be going through a Unity tutorial or starting a sketchbook or designing a game on paper, but that pursuit will reveal to you what makes you excited, and you can start to develop your own path from there. Even if it's something that you pursue and you decide you don't like it, that's additional knowledge. You know that that's not something you enjoy anymore, and that can help you navigate your path.
Thank you. Well, it's really exciting for our audience here, and I'm sure that if they're not already, they'll sign up as IGDA members, and we're all looking forward to the Discord channel.
Yeah, and one thing about IGDA membership, aside from the wonderful communities you get access to, the resources, and supporting the game industry as a whole, is we do provide discounts on conferences, Unity licenses, and many other items that basically allows the membership to pay for itself every year.
Oh, that's great. I mean, that's really practical help. For what can be a very expensive industry. Gosh, I don't even know at the moment how much a Maya license is, for example, but I certainly remember, you know, it's a big chunk of the studio cost. Thank you. Really appreciate it. It's fascinating for me. And I'm actually personally going to follow your game. I'm looking forward to seeing that come out. If people want to reach you, how do they do that?
If you would like to talk to me about IGDA items, you can always email me, Renee, at igda.org. If you want to follow me on social media, my personal social media, Twitter is @Riku, R-I-K-U, cat, K-A-T. But there's also the IGDA Twitter, just IGDA, and the IGDA Executive Director Twitter, which is IGDA_ED. Of course, we have wonderful online communities on basically every platform, so just search IGDA and you'll find us.
Thank you. Thanks for your time this afternoon.